There was a boy named Jeffrey who really loved scary stories and horror theme parties. It was his favorite thing, and he always tried to keep himself and others amused of the horror stories. He was always curious to know about the old, hidden horror secrets of the city or any person. Every year, he would host a horror theme party for his friends and family where people would come dressed in scary costumes and masks. Jeffrey would save up some of his money to buy the best mask, the best costume, and the best decorations for the party. This year was no different. Jeffrey was getting ready to go downstairs and host an amazing theme party. Some of the guests had already arrived. He got dressed up in a shaggy black coat, big black boots, and a long flowing cape. Then he put on his scary mask and admired himself in the mirror. It was the scariest, most hideous mask he had ever seen, and he was sure that everyone at the party would be terrified when they set eyes on it. He would be the envy of all his friends. When Jeffrey was walking downstairs, the party was already in full swing. He could hear the dull sound of the music down the hall. When he arrived, he bumped into a friend. She greeted him and walked along to get some beer from the kitchen. He looked around the living room. Some people were dancing and others were talking and sipping on their beers. They were all laughing, drinking, and nibbling at the buffet. There were witches, ghosts, skeletons, vampires, and zombies. None of the masks were very scary. Jeffrey was sure he had the best one. He stood there and waited for someone to comment on his mask, but nobody paid any attention to him. He was disappointed. He went up to a few guests and greeted them, thinking someone would comment. But they just talked to him and literally no one commented on his mask. Wandering around the room, he tried to give everyone a good view of the mask. He wanted them to be scared. He wanted to cause a stir. One girl tapped him on the shoulder and started talking to him. "Hey, Jeff, who are you supposed to be?" she asked. Jeffrey tried to reply, but he found he couldn't move his mouth. The mask felt too tight. He was embarrassed, so he turned away and went into the kitchen to get himself a pint of beer. He tried to pull off his mask so he could take a drink, but it wouldn't budge. It seemed to be stuck fast to his face. He pulled and tugged on it, but no matter what he did, he couldn't get it off. Jeffrey was starting to get worried. It was hot inside the house, and Jeffrey could feel himself sweating under the mask. He needed to get it off. He needed to get it off now. Grabbing a knife from the kitchen drawer, he went into the toilet and locked the door behind him. He looked in the mirror and started scratching and tearing at the mask, but it really hurt. It was as if the mask was firmly stuck to his skin. Getting desperate, he took the knife and sliced into the mask, cutting off little strips of rubber and tossing them into the sink. Gradually, a queue formed outside the toilet and people started getting impatient, knocking on the door and calling out, "What's going on in there?" Jeffrey was in a panic and he tried peeling off the rest of the mask, but it stubbornly stayed in place. He couldn't understand what was wrong. What if it won't come off, he wondered. What if it's stuck on my face forever? He began hacking at the mask with the knife again and ripping off little bits. More and more people were banging on the door. They did not know who was in there. "Come on," they shouted. "Who is inside? What are you doing in there?" From inside the toilet, they heard Jeffrey shrieking. "It won't come off, my mask! It won't come off!" One of the guests said, "Jeff, is that you? What's wrong?" Jeffrey just kept on squealing and screeching. People gathered outside the toilet gave each other worried looks. One of the girls was puzzled. "Mask?" she said. But Jeffrey wasn't wearing a mask.